Saudi Arabian King Abdullah dies at the age of 90 and is laid to rest in Riyadh. The Islamic State's deadline expires for Japan to pay the ransom for 2 hostages without a word on the fate of the captives. 4 Arab-Israeli parties agree on a united party ahead of the upcoming parliamentary elections in March. And son of Cuban immigrants, U.S. Senator Marco Rubio is preparing to launch a bid for the 2016 Republican presidential nomination. Good evening. You're watching I-24 News. I'm Michal with the hour's headlines. Following the death of 90-year-old King Abdullah, the new Saudi King Salman pledged today to maintain existing energy and foreign policies and appointed a deputy crown prince from his dynasty's next generation. The Saudi royal court announced the death of 90-year-old King Abdullah last night, and foreign dignitaries and heads of state arrived in Riyadh for his funeral this afternoon. Saudi new King Salman had this to say today.
Our Arab and Muslim nation mostly need unity these days, and we will continue with God's willing in our unity efforts to unite and defend our nation. I ask God to save our country and nation so we live in peace and save us from any danger.
And earlier we were joined on the phone by Director of Middle East Studies at Tel Aviv University, Professor Uzi Rabi. He told us about the possible repercussions of the king's death.
The Saudis are having a sort of a different modus operandi or formula by which to sort kind of a cooperation between state and society. This is not a regular nation state in the pure sense of the term. What we have here is a mosaic of alliances between tribal heads, between merchants, and of course on top of that the princes of the family. Basically, it is a family affair which has tribalistic, clientelistic, actually, relationships in it. And this makes the Saudi a unique case in the Middle East. But having said that, I think that what's going on in Saudi Arabia these days is very dramatic in terms of the royal family. Looking at the new king, Salman bin Abdulaziz, and especially the nominations of the heir and the next defense minister, which happens to be the king's son, Mohammed bin Salman, who is aged 35 only, and the heir is Mohammed bin Nayef, 55 only. First of all, we are moving for the first time to the 3rd generation, because I think those two are going to run the business or run the show from now on. I'm not sure how able Salman the king is, and I know that those two actually were behind the scenes pretty influential in the recent years. So we're going to get kind of a fresh, young leadership that is going actually to pave the way for the 21st century, considering that the road is full of dangers.
In Yemen, 2 bombs apparently targeted Shiite Houthi leaders and damaged several buildings this morning in the capital Sana'a, with no injuries reported. The attack took place a day after President Abdurrahman Mansour Hadi resigned, along with the country's prime minister and cabinet. The UN envoy to Yemen, Jamal Bonamar, urged the rival parties in the country to resolve their disagreement through direct dialogue. Meanwhile, the United States said it will reduce its diplomatic staff in Sana'a following the government's fall. This week, Islamic State militants issued a 72-hour ultimatum to Japan's government to pay a huge ransom for the release of 2 Japanese hostages. The deadline has now expired without a word on the captives' fate. I-24 News reporter Gabby Weiniger has the details.
The deadline set by the Islamic State, given to Japan to pay ransom for 2 of their captives, is now over. The mother of Kenji Goto is appealing for her son's life. She says he has a 2-week-old son he hasn't even met yet.
He went in risking his life because I think he believed that the people of Islamic State, if you could just talk to them, there would be people who'd understand.
Japan vows it will continue to do its utmost for their release after the Islamic State released a video threatening to kill Goto and another hostage, Haruna Yukawa. But while Prime Minister Shinzo Abe says saving the men's lives is paramount, Japan will not bow to terror.
We hope that the situation will improve. We have been using all available means through contact with tribal leaders as well as religious figures. And with every minute we are making effort with hopes that we can achieve a good result.
So far, no word yet from the jihadists, but back in Japan, Muslims are praying for their safe release.
And in the latest from Israeli elections, the four Arab-based parties have agreed to run in one joint list. Ayman Oda from the Hadash party will head the new list, which will also be comprised of representatives of Ram-Tal, Balad, and the Islamic movement. The joint list is likely to attract more Arab voters to the polls and is predicted to take at least 15 seats out of the Israeli parliament's total of 120. A short while ago, we spoke with Dr. Ahmed Tibi, a prominent parliamentary leader from the Arab-Israeli bloc. He said they're now on the right path.
I do believe that the turnout will increase. We are talking about at least 10% increase in the participation. Maybe it will be even more, between 60 to 70%. If this will occur, we are talking about between 13 to 15 seats, and it will be unprecedented achievement. We are doing our utmost in order to convince our public to go and take part into these important elections to support this list, which for the first time they are a gathering of four parties with differences in politics, political platforms, but joining the same goal of confronting racism and bringing into bridging the gap between Jews and Arabs, and acting against occupation, ending the occupation. We are in the right way.
And looking at Europe, the British government started a historic transfer of powers to Scotland, keeping a promise to Scots to persuade them to reject independence. The draft bill, which will be enacted after the general elections this May, will further dismantle Britain's highly centralised system of government, but critics fear it could trigger a collapse of the British Union. Prime Minister David Cameron assured that the new laws will reach the statute book.
Be in no doubt, whoever forms the UK government after May the 7th, these new powers are guaranteed. The Scottish Parliament will have more control of its tax and spending, making it one of the most powerful devolved parliaments in the world. The Scottish Parliament will combine the freedom to decide what happens in Scotland's schools, hospitals, surgeries, police stations, with the responsibility of determining how around 60% of public money in Scotland is spent. Because for the first time, the majority of money the Scottish Parliament spends will be raised right here in Scotland.
And we now move to Africa, where the president of Sierra Leone has announced the end of the Ebola quarantine intended to curb the spread of the disease. The president said that, quote, victory is in sight after a sharp drop in transmission numbers. Sierra Leone has recorded more than 10,340 cases of the virus since the outbreak, the most of any country. President Koroma continues to urge citizens to refrain from close contact with the sick and the dead.
We are now entering a transition phase. Given the progress being made against the disease, we must take action to enable economic and social recovery. The fight will not be over until we have had 0 cases for 42 days, until our neighbors in Liberia and Guinea have had 0 cases for 42 days, until our surveillance capacity can ensure that no new cases are going beneath the radar, and until we have built the capacity and resilience in our healthcare system to interrupt transmission and prevent future outbreaks.
And we end in the United States, where Senator Marco Rubio is preparing to launch a bid for the 2016 Republican presidential nomination, announcing a prominent fundraiser and trips to early voting states. Rubio's entry into the race was in question after fellow Florida Republican Jeb Bush moved toward a candidacy this month. Other 2016 hopeful competing for Republican fundraising dollars include New Jersey Governor Chris Christie, former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee, and former presidential candidate Mitt Romney. And that's all the time we have. Thank you for watching.